Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. And in today's video, we'll be talking about the Super Bowl that just passed last night. I think it was a great game. Chiefs win 25-22. We had two Volunteers in the game. I think that they both balled out, man. So Trey Smith was on the winning team with the Chiefs playing right guard. And we had a couple of over-unders that we'll talk about right here. I believe that we had over-under 1.5 sacks, and we all picked the under. I don't think he gave up any sacks in that game. We also had over-under for 2 pancakes in the game, and I saw at least one. I don't know if he had any more than that, but he probably did. We all picked the over on that as well. And then we also had an over-under for 1.5 penalties on Trey Smith, and to my recollection, he didn't have any penalties. So he really did ball out. There was several times that the Chiefs wanted to run right behind Trey Smith. They either had him pulling or, they literally ran, right behind him, just like in a man-on-man situation. And in those situations, he did his job. The running back just didn't really do his. So, I think that Trey Smith played phenomenal, and I'm super proud of him as a volunteer. Now, on to Jauan Jennings, who is a dog, okay? So he had 2 touchdowns in this game, and we actually set the over-under for his touchdowns at 2. I want to say it might have been 1.5. I took the over on that, and I believe that P and Kaysen took the under. So he did get 2 touchdowns. One was a passing and one was a receiving touchdown. Whenever you look at that receiving touchdown that he had, man, you want to talk about fighting through 2 tackles, just the will to get into the end zone. I mean, he's an absolute and total stud. We also set his over-under for yards in this game at, I want to say 40.5. We all picked the over and we all won that. He got 42 yards, and his over-under for catches was, I believe, set at 3.5. We picked the over, and he had 4 catches. So he definitely balled out just like we expected him to. And I think that San Francisco moving forward needs to start trying to use Jauan Jennings a lot more, okay? They've got a lot of good players on that team, but he's just different. Like having a guy that's a dog, especially that maybe doesn't get as much media coverage as like a Deebo Samuel, as like a Kittle, but he is a really good football player, and we kind of saw that more towards the end of the game. They started trying to feed the football to him. And we also talked about this in our Super Bowl morning show, that he's a guy that's kind of like a spark plug. He'll get your entire team going just by making big plays. And he did that in the Super Bowl. He actually, that touchdown pass that he threw, that was the first touchdown of the Super Bowl, okay? And we all know that he was a high school quarterback. And, I mean, I just think that San Francisco needs to try to use him a whole lot more. So Kyle Shanahan, we saw that moving towards the end of the game. It looks like on that last play, I want to say maybe at the end of the game, or maybe it was in overtime, where they tried to throw a football to him in one-on-one coverage, and he was open, okay? He ran like a little curlicue route is what we call it, where you start off inside, then you jet back to the outside. That route's almost impossible to cover, especially playing man-to-man coverage. But he was there. It was just a very poorly thrown ball by Brock Purdy. So, again, man, I'm very, very proud of both of the Volunteers that played in this game. And hopefully we'll have a lot more to come. I do feel like we kind of set some records. And, something else that we talked about in this game was who would be the Super Bowl MVP. We're looking at the prop bets and things like that. And we talked about Jauan Jennings had a good chance to win it. And he probably would have if San Francisco won. I think that it would be hard to argue against him, being the MVP of the game, given that he had 2 really big touchdowns for that team. All right, now I want to shift gears, okay? We're sticking with the Super Bowl, but I want to draw some correlations to what the Kansas City Chiefs look like and what our Tennessee Vols look like, and why I think that we're in a great position to win a national championship this year, okay? We'll start off, number one, we'll just talk about defense. If you look at the way that Kansas City's defense is set up, what they did last night and what they've done for most of the season is they were able to stack that box and play man-to-man coverage. They're strong on, really both fronts, but just talking about defense, they've got a good pass rush. They've got, tackles that maintain their gaps well, and they can also get penetration. They can kind of push that pocket back some. We saw that several times throughout this game, and they've also got some linebackers who are good in pass coverage, but they're really good at stopping the run. They sniff that ball carrier out and they go out and find them. I think that Tennessee is very similar on, our front 4 and with our linebacking core. So the first and the second levels is very similar to what we saw from the Kansas City Chiefs. But to me, what really brings it all together is when your secondary can play man-to-man coverage. And that's what we saw from the Kansas City Chiefs. That really helps you to be able to stack that box up. And what it does is, and this is something that we're about to get to as well, but it makes a quarterback that can't really improvise, that's not very mobile, that's more of a, I'm going to stand inside of this pocket and I'm going to try to force the football down the football field. Those guys have trouble doing it in tighter windows. Whenever you play man-to-man coverage and you do it at a high level, the way that the Chiefs did last night, it's very difficult for a quarterback that people, will quote unquote call a game manager, but all quarterbacks are game managers. You have to manage the game. But I get what they're saying. He's not good at improvising. He's not going to make plays outside of what is there in the play call. This is where we'll have a lot of success this season because our secondary can do the exact same thing. I think that we can play man-to-man across the board from corner to star to both safeties. We should be able to play man-to-man coverage and show a whole lot of those one-high looks, very heavy boxes, and we're going to double dog dare your quarterback to beat us down the field. That, to me, is what you want in a defense because you can beat any type of an offensive scheme if you can do that, okay? Now, the problem is most people can't, or I'm sorry, not most people, but most teams can't do that on the level that they're playing at, right? Because once you get to the NFL, we know everybody's really good. It's very hard to be able to do that. But I do think that we've got the, playmakers on defense who can do that really on the second level and on the third level as well. We'll definitely be throwing some more zone in there too. You got to kind of mix it up sometimes. But just being able to play a lot more man-to-man coverage and having those dogs on the outside that can get to the quarterback in the James Pierce, in the Caleb Herrings, in the Joshua Josephs, in the Jordan Rosses. We've got a whole lot of guys that can get after that quarterback. I think that we're probably about 3 to 4 deep all the way along that defensive line, and we can just bring 4. I think that we'll be able to get a whole lot of pressure with just 4. You throw a blitz or 2 in there every now and then, mix it up sometimes. Come off the edge. I definitely think that Tim Banks is going to be taking advantage of that for sure this season. So our defense will be able to, force teams to beat us with their quarterback play. Now, once you flip it over to the offensive side of the football, this is where I think the strongest correlation comes from. Because whenever you look at Patrick Mahomes, who I believe is the GOAT, okay, I really don't think that there should be any more questions about who the GOAT is. Whenever you watch this man play, we've never seen any quarterback do this up to the point that he's at right now. He's only 28. Okay, he's just now getting into the prime of his career, right? And really, we've seen with quarterbacks, the prime might last a little bit longer than what it did back in the day. So I think that he is the GOAT because he can improvise. This is what we talked about. A game manager versus somebody that's going to be more clutch is going to be, can you improvise once everything breaks down? I think that we've got a Patrick Mahomes type of a football player in Nico Iamaleava on the college level. I do think that Nico is going to be the best quarterback in the entire country this season. Now, some of y'all might be trying to throw out some names. I don't know who you would really be able to throw out there. You might be able to try to throw out a guy like Carson Beck at Georgia. But for me, Carson Beck, he's exactly what Brock Purdy is. He's just a game manager. He's not going to get you anything more than what's there. If you can play tight man-to-man coverage and get some pressure on him, he's I'm talking about super duper average. And I can actually draw some correlations between the San Francisco 49ers and the Georgia Bulldogs because they both have strong front sevens. All right. But I would say that the biggest difference between those two teams is going to be that the offense their offenses are not going to be anywhere near the same. You got Kyle Shanahan calling plays. He knows how to dial them up. Okay. He's an offensive genius. And for the Georgia Bulldogs, you've got Mike Bobo, you've got Kirby Smart. It's going to be a whole lot of very conservative stuff. They're just going to line up, play straight up and down football, play fundamentally sound football, and try to beat you. I think that we're going to beat them this season. I actually think that they're going to take a step back. I see them losing a few games this year, but for sure, I feel extremely confident in Tennessee's, chances to be able to beat Georgia. Now, I guess the only other quarterback that I could think of that you could maybe throw out there would be like Quinn Ewers at Texas. And I don't know. I don't want to call him a goofball, but I just don't believe in him. Okay. He's kind of that same deal. Now he can move. Okay. He's more mobile than a Carson Beck is, but he's still, to me, he's kind of a game manager. He's not really much of a baller as far as I can see. And we saw that he didn't beat Washington in the conference finals. So, that should tell you something about the type of a player that he is, especially with Texas having way more talent than Washington had. I just, kind of feel like if he was who people try to make him out to be, then he would have won that game. So I definitely give Nico the edge over both of those players. Now, we've only seen Nico play in college really in one full game, but you got to love what you saw from him, right? Again, being able to improvise, which means that, hey, if the pass and everything kind of breaks down, I can either extend the play, okay, and find somebody open then, which once you start to extend plays, if you're a quarterback who can do that, I can tell you from playing in the secondary, it's very hard to cover, any wide receiver or anybody for too long. Okay. Over about 3 seconds, it starts to get difficult. So he can find people open, and he's a gunslinger. He's going to throw that ball in there. He's very accurate. He's got a very strong arm. And, he could throw from different angles as well. Very similar to a Patrick Mahomes, but he can also extend it by running that football. We saw Patrick Mahomes convert on a few very critical third or fourth downs in the Super Bowl with his legs. And he's got the big body to be able to go through tackles. A lot of people want to talk about how Nico is a little bit slender, but he's strong though. Okay. We've seen that in several plays. We've seen him kind of running through tackles. We've seen him using his stiff arm. He's tall, he's long, he might be kind of wiry, but he's very, very strong. And you can't quantify the amount of heart that a young man has. And he's got a whole lot of heart, just like Patrick Mahomes. That's that dog factor that we're talking about. Having a dog like that, that's a playmaker at the quarterback position, is the ultimate equalizer. And again, if you go back to the Super Bowl last night, San Francisco was more dominant in the run game. They were more dominant in stopping Kansas City's run. And they were more dominant in getting after Patrick Mahomes, as far as getting sacks and getting pressure on him. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day whenever you got the X factor at quarterback. So that's why I think that we should all be very excited, because ultimately what we can do, okay, if the staff plays it the way that I think that they're going to this upcoming season, is we can say, hey, we're going to turn this and say, hey, okay, running games, kind of might be a stalemate whenever we're talking about playing up against the playoff caliber types of teams. Running game might be a stalemate on both sides, okay? And, we're going to tighten up these passing windows, and it's ultimately going to come down to what quarterback is going to perform better in the clutch. So, again, ask yourself, is there any quarterback in this country who you would trust more in a clutch situation than Nico Iamaleava? There's not one for me. So that's why I think Tennessee is on their way to a national championship. This is what you need moving forward in football these days, is a Patrick Mahomes type of a player. Again, he's the GOAT. I'm not saying that Nico is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I think that he has a chance to. Okay, I think he's got all the proper skill sets and tools to be that. But on the college level, he's going to be very similar to that. So those are my thoughts, and I would love to hear y'all's. Please leave them down in the comments section. And as always, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.